Speaker in this session is Jonathan Rees. Jonathan will speak about open as a strategy for durability, reproducibility, and scalability.
How do I advance? Use the keyboard here.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to talk about the Open Tree of Life project. That's my talk outline. To explain why the project is doing what it's doing, how it works, and then talk about the open aspect as a way to help make it work. Okay, I'm supposing that you're interested in the evolution of chickens. If you succeed in some sort of search, or if you know the area, you can go to the literature and find a phylogenetic tree that'll tell you about chicken and related species here. So this you have time roughly going from left to right. This is the branching pattern of evolution, speciation. So you find chickens here in the middle, Gallus. But you can find information like this in lots of different places, right? Here we have different information. Gallus is here at NCBI taxonomy, but it's there with different species, probably with a different classification, right? See, this figure is showing you that there's a classification that puts the blue things together, but after a sort of phylogenetic reconstruction, you get a rather different thing showing what people thought was not quite right. And if you were interested in a detailed study like this one, but you were interested outside of this group, it's not clear where you'd go. You'd have to search a lot of papers. You'd get different information that's sort of incomparable, has different coverage. So the trick is, what you really want is you'd like to have a tree of life that you can query with your evolutionary questions and to get tree information from. Because in reality, there's basically one tree of life, with some exceptions. But if you want this kind of information, typically people will run into all kinds of problems. That the information is hard to find. It's spread out across thousands and thousands of different papers. There's no sort of index for them. There are technical incompatibilities between these things that make them hard to compare and integrate, having to do with identifiers and scientific names. There's conflict between the studies that may be hard to understand. There's no single view of what's out there. So the idea is to make a tree of life. So this is what our application is trying to do. This is the sort of the curation page for that paper. If you can get a hold of the phylogenetic tree in machine-readable form, you can enter it into this system. There's a fair amount of manual curation required just to get something in. This is just showing you the basic stuff. You want the reference, the DOI, the focal clade. And you have to match up the names used in the paper with names that are in the taxonomy, and basically to other sources. Eventually, as you assemble a lot of these papers together, you get an increasingly complete tree of life. This is our tree at present, just showing you the groups that have 5,000 or more members. So with bacteria, plants, fungi, animals. And users get at this tree either through a tree browser. There's chickens again in the middle. I chose chickens. It's an economically important species. So there's access through a browser, and there's access through an API, which I don't have a picture of. But the overall architecture is, I guess it's like other ETL systems. What is it? Extract, translate, load. So the first thing is to gather a set of names, which are going to be the leaves of the tree. And that's through taxonomy. You upload a study. People have uploaded about 2,000 trees, 2,000 studies, each study having several trees. And there's a curation interface that lets you specify the root of the tree, which is often not given. Even though you have the tree, it doesn't say what the root is. And the in-group, which is related to the anchoring the tree. We maintain a repository. The trees are stitched together using a synthesis algorithm. And then access is provided to the synthetic tree and to the original trees, the source trees. So this is taking just a pile of, basically a pile of, technically, I was going to say a pile of junk. Technically, it's a pile of junk, but scientifically, it's wonderful material. So the problem we're up against. This is a subject of a whole talk, but just getting a hold of the trees is hard. You might think you could write a crawler and just grab them all, but they're not even on the web for the most part, right? If you're lucky, they'll be in Treebase or in Dryad, which are repositories for digital repositories for these things. But of the ones that we tried to get when we set out, which is about 8,000 studies, I think, only about 4% of those were available, were on deposit. So this is the data availability problem. If you send email, you can get a bunch more. Otherwise, the trees are only available as JPEGs. And now I refer to Ross Mounce's talk yesterday. So that's going to be how we're going to have to get this stuff if we're going to get it. There's manual labor involved, so I mentioned that. So these are sort of danger points. Not enough trees, not enough labor. So, like everything else nowadays, this is kind of a crowdfunding story. We do have some funding now for paid curation. That'll dry up at some point, way before this thing is actually done. And if we're successful, then we'll have a community that will want to make the corpus and the synthetic tree richer. So we have to get people. I'm calling them volunteers. Like I say, the current curators are not volunteers; they're actually paid. But in effect, in the long run, it will be volunteers, even if it comes out of a grant. So there's a danger. There's a danger that the project may lose funding. Of course, that's why we're looking for this kind of strong support within the community. There's a danger that the data could be lost. You don't want to contribute to a project if you think that what you're contributing to is going to disappear, right? If this stuff is locked up in a database, and the curation effort is independently valuable, independently of whether any of our software is running, because other pieces of software other programs can use it. So, but you don't want this stuff to be locked up. If you want volunteers to invest their time in making the thing better. So, and then there's a risk. There's another thing that could be a turnoff for volunteers, which is if the software is closed. These are related. You don't want the data to be captured by the software. Is the basic story here, right? So, and then another kind of threat is basically the reproducibility, that the whole project can lose credibility if it's not clear what we're doing. So, so the defense obviously is open. And I just wanted to mention a couple of things we're doing along these lines that I think is sort of interesting beyond the sort of obvious kind of open source stuff. So the attitude towards data, we're obligated, if to do this project at all, we're obligated to deal with a lot of published material, which is not, Hilmar, you're keeping track of my time, right? Yeah. Okay. Which is not marked as being open. But so the attitude here is that, well, according to U.S. law, if it's not creative expression, then it's not protected by copyright. So open data in a sense is is redundant. So we have a lot of trees that are available in a database called Treebase, and those, we're using that. We think everyone else can use it, but the database was started 20 years ago, before anyone was thinking about legal questions. So we are facilitating marking data as CC0 to so in the curation interface, there's a place you go that says, I'm an author of this, and I say it's CC0. CC0 helps make the corpus more available to volunteers and to the community. So again, CC0 makes the whole thing more valuable. Let's see. It's a free software thing that sort of goes without saying here, except I want to mention we are doing the Free Software Foundation recommendations for JavaScript, and I hope everyone else will do that too. That's easy to find on the the GNU project. That's easy to GNU.org. We're putting all the data in GitHub. That's sort of an experiment, which is working out. It's hard to do that, but it's working out pretty well so far. Oh no, what happened? My slides are out of order. I'm missing a slide, Hilmar. Okay. Yeah, and I got rid of those terrible transitions. Slide transitions. Okay, so here we are. So scripting. So I had a slide showing you a diff on GitHub of versions of the data, showing you how the curator has improved the curation of that particular study, and it shows up in the JSON that's in the file on deposit in GitHub. So that's pretty fun. I guess a couple of us on the project were burned or just felt very uncomfortable using a relational database because our past experience, showed the data that showed that as a way of kind of locking up the data inside the application. So by putting it on GitHub, we're saying it's not just a technical thing. We're sending a message that we're not doing anything secret on our servers that you can't get at. There's no column in the database that we failed to externalize that might be important to something. So I think that goes to reproducibility, is providing the complete set of inputs. These slides are out of order. I'm sorry I didn't get you the right version. This is a list of places you can go to find out more. Tree.opentreeoflife.org is our main sort of browser site at this point. I wanted to just mention that the other kind of open we have here is process open. We've been using public issue trackers on GitHub, discussion groups. And one interesting thing we're trying, which again is working pretty well, is instead of building our own commenting system and feedback system within our browser, because you want to be able to talk about different parts of the tree and different studies, we're again just using GitHub, the GitHub issue tracker to record any kind of feedback that users have. So we put an interface on the front so that you don't have to have a GitHub account in order to submit the feedback. But if you do, you can go back and find the whole history of the issue and everything is there. So we basically, we don't keep track of user accounts, right? We let GitHub do that for us. We don't keep track of data. We let GitHub do that for us. We basically tried to outsource as much as we can. And I just have one cute slide for you, which is that if there's sort of 5 or 6 processes that are just basic to life. There's copying, there's interpretation or gene expression, there's dissemination, there's competition, there's change or mutation, and merging. If you take those set of activities, they apply equally well to life and to things like software development, the open source movement, and institutions like GitHub. So I just find it interesting going back and forth between these two activities, the study of evolution and the study of the source. So that's the talk.
Thanks, Jonathan. Time for questions.
Can you flip back to your contacts?
Oh yeah, sorry. This one.
No questions? Jonathan, one question. So I understand you are using GitHub in essence as a data store, right? And so how well does it actually work in terms of performance?
Well, it's only been live for 3-4 weeks for use by our curators. Nobody's complained. The changes to data are made in batches, so it goes through a couple of stages. So I don't have a strong reason to think that it would be a bottleneck, but there are just a couple of things we've done technically to make it work better. Like there's a clone, but then there's a second local checkout, so that things. I don't know. I don't have time to explain it, but we've done a few things to try to make it go smoothly and make it be interactive.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Your last slide.